Welcome back, listeners. You made it to episode 8. This is Arts and Crimes. I'm one of your hosts, Kelly.
And I'm Brandon.
And I'm Josh.
Oh, good job, guys.
Yeah, we nailed that one.
That was so professional.
Today, originally I was going to do a totally different subject because I wanted to go like way back history. Because I feel like we've done quite a few like in the World War II era. And so I was going to go all the way back to Egypt and do some Egypt scandals. Because there's so much scandals and art in Egypt, as it turns out.
True.
But then I started doing the research and I was like, oh my gosh, there's so much. I'm going to have to make this like a 2-parter some other day. So I was like, I'll do this really easy subject. So we're going to talk about...
You know what's a good way to start your podcast? By saying, there's a super interesting thing we would have done, but I decided to do something much smaller and more boring.
We're going to phone it in this time.
Yeah.
You had to let me finish.
We could have done something fantastic.
The finish to this story.
The mystery of the finger paints.
All right, just cut out our comments and continue where you were.
The finish to the story is that I intended to do... to phone it in. I wanted to. And I decided to do Vincent Van Gogh. Uh-huh. And I am already like way over the amount. It's going to be a 2-parter. Like there's no way that I can...
Vincent
For Vincent Van Gogh. Yeah.
It's
or
pronounced
Gough.
Van Gogh.
And so I didn't...
It's Gog.
It's Gaga. You got to get the H in there.
Yeah.
Gach.
Everybody...
It's real reflexive. He's German, right?
It's not any of those things.
Vincent Van Gogh.
Anyways, so I couldn't phone it in even though I tried. So instead of doing a 2-parter on this other thing, we'll do that other thing later. So, because I'm still doing the research for it, so you'll still get it at some point. But we also now are doing a 2-parter with Van Gogh.
You just can't phone it in.
I can't help
You're
it.
incapable of not excellence.
Yeah, I'm a teacher.
Of mediocrity.
We go above and beyond even when we don't want to.
Oh my gosh, teachers.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're just the worst.
Well, most...
Just call it good enough and
people
stop.
would agree with you.
Yeah. Listen, you don't have to teach our kids that well. What are they even going to do with that knowledge?
So yeah, I'm actually like, I thought in my brain, I was like, this will be so easy because everybody knows Van Gogh. And there's kind of like, you know, the 2 major mysteries of Van Gogh, which is about his ear.
Yes.
And about his death.
Oh, dang it.
He dies. I'm sorry.
Spoiler alert.
I wanted to guess. I like it when we have like little guessy things.
Sure.
Okay.
So if you said what were the 2 mysteries, I would have gotten ear.
Yeah.
What did you think the second one was?
I had no idea. Literally all I know about him is that
The ear?
he had an ear.
He did. He brought it down to an ear by the end. Did you know that?
Did I know that he cut off his ear and
Yeah.
sent it to somebody? Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
He sent it to somebody? Oh, this is so mysterious and exciting.
yeah.
I want to learn more. Where can I learn more about Van Gogh's ear?
If you just listen to me talk, you'll find out.
Stop talking, Josh.
I can't listen to you. I'm busy talking right now.
Yeah, so the ear, which is, we'll get up to the mystery of the ear. So by the end of tonight, you'll get to know.
So is tonight dedicated to the ear?
The ear.
Oh, man.
The
And then
next time is about his death.
Which is
Part
also
2.
mysterious?
Also mysterious because originally it was thought that it was a suicide, but it's very likely that it wasn't a suicide.
Oh, man.
And
You're
so
teasing us for the one that's 2 parts away.
I really am. It's like, weeks you'll have to wait for it.
Stick to the ear.
Yep. That's what it is, which I was really proud. And now I'm going to tell you the title of this episode. You guys, so here's a fun fact for the listeners. Josh and Brandon never know what the title of the episodes are. They know very little. They come and they record and then they don't listen to it. They never know what it ends up. They don't know what jokes I put in. Nothing. It's all a surprise.
I listened to it once.
That's true, you did.
I can't stand my own voice. We had this discussion off, but now that it's come up on the pod, we can say we all hate our own voices.
Yeah, that's the end of the discussion we had, was that each one of us hates the sound of our own voice.
Commenters, chime in with who has the worst voice. Wow.
Please don't do that. I will be very self-conscious when everyone's like, Kelly.
All right.
I almost said Boyles.
I really feel like we need a positive spin on that. So how about you just tell us how great our voices are? Okay.
No, that is,
What?
well, no, it's not sincere.
Okay.
now.
We want only
Tell
sincere.
us sincerely how great our voices are. If you hate our voices,
Don't comment.
yeah, just leave.
Yeah.
Now,
Maybe don't listen to the pod.
yeah, that's true. If you hate our voices, why are you doing this to yourself?
Pick a different pod.
Just change the channel.
You don't have to be here.
And that's why I don't listen to the pod.
Yeah.
Aw.
I hate my voice. Well, I like your voice and your voice.
Well, I've only listened to the first episode that I wasn't a part of.
That's true. And I force you to listen to the jokes that I put at the end.
I don't mind that.
Yeah.
I'm curious as to what the end joke will be.
And I'm always curious too.
So yeah, you could make the titles very like demeaning to Brandon and
And
I.
you would never
You'd be
know.
like, I tell two dummies about art.
And you won't believe what happens next.
I can't believe I haven't been doing that.
Make it super clickbaity. These idiots don't know what pointillism is.
But you knew what pointillism was. You just didn't know what Ben-Day dots were.
Yeah. I
I
still
have
don't know
already
what they are.
forgotten about it until you just said it.
Go back and listen to the pod. You'll learn something.
We are proving our point here.
Okay, but the title of this episode, which I was really proud
Don't
of.
spoil it for me.
You don't want to know? I was going to tell you.
Tell me, don't tell him.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Just go like in the background, be like, I called it Van Gogh Part 1, an earful or a full ear.
Oh.
I don't get it.
Okay, at the end of the episode, you're going to be like, oh, I get it now. All right, so Vincent Van Gogh, let's talk about this guy.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
Do you guys know, I feel like I don't have a good gauge sometimes on what, people do and do not know about artists, famous artists. Because there's me and I speak with other art professionals, right? So we all know, Van Gogh and his whole story. And then I speak to high schoolers, and they're like, Van whom? No. That is too proper.
Yeah.
They're just we don't know what you're talking
They
about.
go Van Skibbity?
Yeah. That's exactly what they do. And I'm like, Van Gogh is skibbity. He's got so much riz. He's the Rizzler of artists.
Oh, please stop. This hurts.
Van Grizzler.
Yeah, there it is.
That's someone who rizzes grizzly bears.
Yeah.
That's
So,
what a grizzly
but
is.
do you know much about him other than the ear? About
What kind of answer would you like? Would you
about
like
his
a
art?
yes,
Do you know?
or
Could
would
you
like
name
a list of things that we know about him?
could you name 3 of his most famous artworks?
I could list 2.
That's pretty good.
Let's
right?
hear him.
The Scream, Starry
Nope.
Night. Wait, what? Who that is?
The Scream is by Munch.
Gosh dang it. Let's remove that from the podcast, please.
Purge the tape.
What?
Okay, wait. But Starry Night?
Starry Night is
Okay.
Van Gogh. Yes.
Okay,
They look
I
the
understand
same.
that. They do kind of have a similar energy in that they're both wavy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was making fun of you
I-
with that statement.
That's one of the risks, of being a celebrity and being out there is, there's a chance for you looking a little foolish. And
I'm proud of you.
But I
We've all learned
don't want to embrace that.
But you do know
Starry Night.
Starry Night.
He was a ginger,
He was. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
and he ended his life with one less ear than he started.
Correct. I mean,
Oh,
that's
and he had a
3
blue period.
That's 3 facts. I don't remember a blue period though.
What? Dang it.
The primary color he used, actually, the color that was really important to Van Gogh is yellow,
Oh, that's fun.
I feel
which is super odd.
Is that odd?
Yeah, it's not the most common color for artists to be all up ons.
Okay.
But you are all up on.
I love yellow. Yeah, yellow ochre is my favorite
They
color.
were all yellow. You're literally wearing a yellow shirt.
Oh yeah, I am. And the shirt you're sitting in, the chair
shirt-
you're sitting
the
in
chair
is yellow.
There's yellow all around us. This is a magical moment. I know Aesop Rock made a song about Van Gogh that is
Yeah.
fantastic.
It is a really good song.
Oh my gosh.
What?
He didn't have a blue period.
No, he did not.
His periods were all regular colors.
Okay, hold on. Let's start over and I'll answer first. Okay.
Okay.
Ready?
I'm ready.
Ask
Okay.
the question.
So, can you name maybe 3 paintings by Van Gogh?
No.
Oh my gosh. Okay. He did do a sunflowers,
Yeah, he
field of
did.
sunflowers, right? I
Yeah.
just don't know what it's called.
So he did
Unless it's called sunflowers. And then I know it.
sunflowers. Yeah, it's a vase of sunflowers.
It was a field of vases.
Yeah. has a field of vases,
of
but he just
soap
zoomed
bars.
in on one of them.
Yeah,
but
can't
if you
see.
know the story of the picture, it's actually
actually a
a field.
Yeah.
You did do a field of crows.
He made one called Landscape with Snow. That was the one that Aesop Rock wrote his song about.
Yeah, Starry Night is his really famous one. That's the one most people know.
Yeah,
And that everybody copies.
any idiot
for-
would know that one.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And it's in that style. It's post-impressionist is the style that he is. And
Okay.
so post-impressionism is
Hold on, that means after Impressionist.
yeah.
Why is that even a term? Like I'm.
Like, why is that
Like,
an art movement?
Why wouldn't
Well,
they just make a new name?
Yeah, give it its own name. It's just like the art that came after this. Like that doesn't make sense to me.
I'll explain why.
Okay.
So, right before post-impressionist, this is a good question. These are good questions, legitimate questions. So, post-impressionism, as it sounds, came right after impressionism. And so part of post-impressionism is they're actually utilizing quite a bit of the components of impressionism, but in using them their way, they're sort of rejecting it a little bit. I know that sounds so crazy. So impressionism is something that is a painting that reflects like a fleeting moment. They're often kind of like fuzzy or hazy looking. They use like pastel soft colors, and you can see the brush strokes, but they're small. And it's not anything that is like crazy like there's no like crazy details, you know. They use like bright and vibrant colors, but they also often are in these pastels. So if you think of like Monet's Water Lily Pond, that one, do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah,
I
think
get that
so.
reference, yes.
Yeah, so that's Impressionism. Post-Impressionism kind of extended Impressionism by using a lot of those same elements, but then rejecting the limitations that were put on it. So they used vivid colors, they used thick paint applications, real life subject matters, and they emphasized like geometric forms and distorted forms. It was very expressive. And the colors didn't necessarily have to make as much sense and weren't as soft and blurry as Impressionism is. So if you think of Starry Night, right, it has those like real big, bold brush strokes, and they take up a large, it like creates that kind of texture in the piece, where the brush strokes in Impressionist paintings are much more sort of hidden and woven into the.
Would you call it painterly?
Yeah, I would.
Hey, callback! Yes!
That's a really good high five. Excellent work. So yes, that is why it's called post-impressionism, because it's still using elements of impressionism in it, but it is distinctly different from impressionism. So yeah, that's the style of painting that it kind of is in. But before we get too far on that, I want to talk about his life and what leads up to the whole ear incident. Okay. So Vincent Van Gogh, before he was born, a year before he was born, his older brother was born, but stillborn. And so March 30th, 1852, and his parents named him Vincent Willem Van Gogh. And then exactly a year later, on March 30th, 1853, they had another boy, and they named him Vincent Willem Van Gogh. They just gave him the same name. And that's the Van Gogh that we know. And what's interesting about that already is they lived, like, he would walk by constantly the grave marker of his brother that had his name on it.
Oh, that's spooky.
And so there was a lot of people that were like, right there already started his weird mental issues.
It's been a good Halloween episode.
Yeah, it would have been. Gosh darn it. I did Bigfoot instead.
That's also a good one. Never mind. I retract my suggestion.
But I mean, here's the other thing about Van Gogh that you're gonna have to like deal with is there's a lot of documentation. Van Gogh has tons and tons of letters that he writes. He wrote over 2,000 letters, and we have 820 of them like collected, and we have 83 that were written to him. So we have a lot of information about Van Gogh, but weirdly, there is so much misinformation, like rumors and stuff. They're just unsubstantiated facts. And so that's one where they're like, here's the start of Van Gogh's mental issues. But there's not any actual documentation to confirm that. It's
to confirm the whole stillbirth story?
No, that's true. To confirm how it affected him.
Created an issue.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like maybe he was totally chill with it.
Yeah, because he doesn't write about it in his letters anywhere. So they're not 100% sure if it did or didn't.
So that's just a wild guess.
Which
Somebody
happens
just went,
a lot in this. Yeah, wild guesses. Because he's such an interesting person with such an interesting viewpoint and creates these incredibly interesting artworks. So we really want to understand. And so we throw out these ideas, but a lot of them we just don't know. We have a lot of documentation, but still a lot of speculation. So and then after that, he's the oldest of 6 kids. So his father is Reverend Theodorus Van Gogh, and his mother is Anna Cornelia Carbentus, and then Van Gogh. So Vincent's the oldest. Anna Cornelia Van Gogh is the second. And then Theo, who plays a very large part in this, or Theodorus. Theo Van Gogh, Elizabeth Van Gogh, Wilhelmina Van Gogh, and then Cornelis Van Gogh. So 3 boys, 3 girls. Here's another fun fact. Interesting. All of the Van Gogh boys do not live past 40. And all of the Van Gogh girls live into their 70s.
I think that little slip is you should keep. The
Which
Van
one?
Girls.
Van Girls?
The Van Girls.
Van Girl Club. I also think it was good that you rephrased that as fun to interesting. Fun fact.
Fun fact.
They all died.
Yeah, it's not fun, I guess. But I was like, that is super interesting. Because Van Gogh dies at 37. Theo only lives to 33. And Cornelis only lives to 32.
So they died before Van Gogh.
No.
Oh.
Because Van Gogh's
37.
the oldest.
I know he's older,
But
like,
the age gap was
wasn't
big
enough.
enough.
Yeah. Although Theodore dies very shortly after Van Gogh dies.
Okay.
Yeah. So anyways, the kind of environment that they grew up in was very religious. Their father was a reverend. And also their mother was super into like making sure that they had a good looking social status. So do everything proper, do everything right, associate with like people higher ups. Like they have to be wealthy, they have to be doing well. Like don't associate with like poor people. That's a no-no. And spoiler alert, Van Gogh does not do that. He for sure doesn't. He does the opposite. He loves
the
poor
poors.
people.
Poor people are the best.
I love them.
That's kind of like the basis of their household. Anyways, so 16, he got a job arranged for him by his uncle Vincent, as an apprentice art dealer. So the thing is Van Gogh didn't start out doing art necessarily, but this sort of got him into the art world. And he actually like took to it really well. He loved being surrounded by art. He did really well in the position, so much so that he like out-earned his father. So he was doing really, really well. And eventually he was able to move out into his own place and was working as this fairly successful art dealer. And this is when he comes across his first love. And to prepare you, there's a lot of love in Vincent's life that ends up getting very rejected or goes very awry. Doesn't go well. Okay, so this is where Vincent kind of encounters his first love, which is his landlord's daughter. And I can't imagine I spelled this correctly in my notes. I'm the worst. But I think it's...
But her name was also Vincent Van Gogh. In a strange twist of fate.
Yeah. I think it's Eugenie Lawyer is her name. I think that's how it's said. And he confessed his feelings to her, and she immediately rejected him and told him that she was engaged to a former lodger, and she had no interest in him. And so his reaction was to sort of retreat into his more religious background and sort of do some self-isolating. So his
question: what denomination was he? Do we know, or do you know?
I think at one point it says he was a Protestant minister at
So
some
just
point.
not Catholic.
Yeah.
Some brand of
it's just listed
Protestantism.
as Christian, and he's officially named as a pastor once Protestant. So
Okay.
I'm not 100% sure. But that's what he did. He goes very back and forth between being religious and more and less religious. And in some of his letters, he's quoting quite a bit from like the Bible and that kind of stuff. And then others, he like doesn't want to talk about it at all. So his father, noticing this isolation, him and his uncle Vincent arranged to have Van Gogh transferred to Paris in 1875. And they transfer him, and that goes super poorly because he goes to this art dealer place, and this place he finds has no morals, and he hates how they've treated the art as something that's just a commodity to be bought and sold. He feels like they have no honor, and he voices his opinion very strongly about it. And so the management dismisses him from his position very quickly. So then in 76, the following year, Vincent returns to England, and he takes an unpaid teaching position at doing supply for a boarding school. And he moves back in. Then he moves back in with his parents, and they get another job for him that's arranged by his uncle again at a bookshop. And he also doesn't like this job, but he spends most of his time in this job, like doodling and translating Bible passages into English, French, and German. He's actually really good with languages, and a bunch of his letters are actually written in French. And he finds writing in French easier sometimes, as he said in one of his letters. So he's pretty gifted with language. And so that's just what he's spending most of his time doing, doodling and language stuff. And then in 1877, the family arranged for him to move in with his uncle, Johannes Stricker. And he was a respected theologian in Amsterdam. And something you'll notice about Vincent is he is a very nomadic person. He does not stay in one place very long. And oftentimes it's because the relationships or his interactions with people go very, very poorly. So he has a really hard time connecting with people, and he also has like bouts of like depression and that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of kind of imbalance going on for Van Gogh throughout kind of all of this. So, he's with his uncle, Johannes Stricker, and it's sort of an easy liaison for him to prepare into for entering the ministry. And so he studies theology at a school for theology at the University of Amsterdam, or he studies theology at the school, the University of Amsterdam. And he feels really encouraged about it because he's with his uncle, who's a very respected theologian, and he takes the entrance exam and fails miserably, so he doesn't get in. And apparently part of the problem was, and I think this is something he admits in a letter maybe, is that instead of studying, it turns out what he ended up doing most of the time is he would get bored with studying, and he would get up and go on walks, and he would go around like observing the city and nature and all that kind of stuff. So he was maybe not as surprised as you might have thought that he failed. So he decides to leave his uncle's house, and he took a 3-month course to be a Protestant missionary at a school in Laeken. This is near Brussels. He failed that also. But in 1879, he accepts a post as a missionary at Petit Wasmes. It's a coal mining district in modern-day Belgium. And he's quoted, he gets there, and this mining district is just like destitute and just the epitome of gloom. So he wrote in one of his letters, he said, "It's a somber place, and at first sight, everything around it has something dismal and deathly about it. The workers there are usually people emaciated and pale owing to fever, who look exhausted and haggard, weather-beaten and prematurely old. The women generally sallow and withered." And
Sallow is a great word.
it is. It is. He has like excellent diction. I like reading. I actually bought a book that has a bunch of his letters, and I read quite a few of them, and it's beautiful the way that he speaks and the way that he gives insight on some things. I think is fantastic.
The title of this one's going to be "These Two Dummies Don't Speak Nearly as Well as Van Gogh."
Well, that's not true. You guys have excellent vocabulary also.
I love that he flunked out of missionary school, and they were like, nobody wants to go to the place where everyone's dying all the time. How about we send the one guy that flunked out? Like, it's like a practical joke.
It really is. And oh my gosh, it just keeps, poor Van Gogh. So.
And now I'm understanding why he's associated with yellow, though.
Yeah, it really is, like, makes sense. So he goes to this place, and he really, really wants to live as Christ-like as he feels he can. And so because of the state the people are in, he decided that he would give up the home that the ministry is providing for him, and he would let homeless people stay there. And instead, he started lodging at a little hut, but he was sleeping in this little tiny hut on straw, so he wasn't even on a bed or.
I thought you put that on mute.
I did.
That's so unprofessional.
It is.
You're off the pod. Brandon, you need to research art for next week. Okay, so I don't know. I appreciate when people try to actually follow the example of Christ and do what he would do.
Yeah.
Because that's a lot harder.
Yeah. And he did it so excellently because he would give away all of the really nice clothes that he had, if he could, to people that didn't have any.
That's literally in the Bible.
Yeah, it is. And that's what he read, so that's what he did. And the people of the area of this mining district nicknamed him the Christ of the coal mines.
This friggin' dog.
Okay. If you hear that, that's Zion, the dog. He's adorable. He likes me best.
It's true.
It's true. Can confirm.
Okay, anyways. So, here's the sad half of that story, is the church found out that he was doing this, and they didn't like it. They said that he was undermining the dignity of the priesthood, and they dismissed him from his position. And
they were like, we don't want our priests to be that Christ-like.
You're making the rest of us look bad.
Yeah.
You know what made me think of is Hot Fuzz.
Yeah.
When they sent him out, because he's like, you're just too good.
You're making the rest of us look bad.
Yeah. So in a letter, what he said about it was, he said, "They think I'm a madman because I wanted to be a true Christian. They turned me out like a dog, saying I was causing a scandal." And I just feel bad because he really was trying to do his best, but
yeah,
they weren't fans of it. So in response to this, because he felt incredibly hopeless and dejected, he walked 77 kilometers, or I translated that to miles. It's 47.85 miles.
Less impressive.
I'm sorry.
Just say about 50 miles. That's better.
There you go. He walked it. He walked about 50 miles.
So did everybody back then.
Inaccurate.
Sorry, I'm trying to play him down. But
It's a
you
lot.
and the Protestants.
You're making me feel bad about myself, Van Gogh.
But he walked all the way to Brussels, and then once again moved in with his parents. When he did, he realized that he was causing his family a whole lot of grief, and his father expressed as much. And
his dad was also like, "You're being too Christ-like."
Get out of here. His father suggested that they commit him to a lunatic asylum, is what they suggested.
How old was he at this point?
Boy, it was 1880.
When was he born?
He was born in 1853.
So it's 27.
27.
Wow, you guys are so good at math.
I just said what he said.
Wow, you're good at math. So yeah, 27. Which, I mean, he's getting pretty close to when he starts making art. So, I mean, he's gone through a lot already and he's only 27.
You kind of got to be a little crazy to make art.
I mean, that's not wrong. Yeah. So, things aren't going well with his family, so he goes and applies to study with a Dutch artist, Willem Roelofs. And Roelofs encourages Van Gogh to apply to the Académie Royale des Beaux-Arts in Brussels. Because he's sufficiently impressed by...
All of our Dutch listeners are going to be so disappointed with our pronunciation.
It was really bad.
That was probably a French name.
I think
if it was in Brussels.
Our French listeners will also be disappointed.
Yeah. We do have a large French following.
Yeah.
With the amount, I literally was like reading this and I was like, why is it's all French, but so much of the arts happens in France. So he was encouraged to study at this academy because Roelofs was actually sufficiently impressed with Van Gogh's abilities at this point, which had been entirely self-taught because Van Gogh hadn't gotten into any schools at any point. And so he studied anatomy and the standard rules of modeling and perspective is really what he did. He didn't get like a degree or anything. He just kind of studied those things in this academy. And then the following year, in 1881, he moved back in with his parents for the third time. But he spent a lot of his time just sketching, like sketching the people around town, doing all that kind of stuff. And his brother, Theo, whom he had been writing letters this whole time. Anytime Van Gogh is away from home, he's writing Theo letters constantly. That's the main person he's writing letters to. And so Theo is more or less convinced Vincent that he would serve God better as an artist rather than a minister. And so, and you see a lot of how Vincent feels kind of religious about how he does his art. He talks about how he wants to bring a voice to these people, and it feels that he's part of them as he draws them, kind of thing. Because he draws a lot of very like the less fortunate and that kind of stuff. And so he continues to draw his neighbors and that kind of stuff. And he also starts to get to know his cousin and family friend. Her name is Cornelia, or Key, as they called her, Voss Stricker. And if you recognize the last name Stricker,
Amsterdam. Yes?
Yeah, his uncle that was the theologian. Yeah. That's his daughter.
What?
And
he got to know his cousin, who was the daughter of Stricker, who he stayed with while he was studying to get into a thing that he
failed the exam for. Exactly. And she had been recently widowed, so she was there with her 8-year-old daughter, and her and Van Gogh would go on walks, and he fell in love with her, and he declared his love to her, and her response was "Nuit ni nimmer," which translates to "no, nay, never," which made me think of that Irish drinking song.
Dropkick Murphys song?
I don't know.
I think it's Dropkick Murphys.
Where they're like, "No, nay, never."
Yeah.
No, nay, never, no more.
This is like a shanty.
Yeah, it's like an Irish
song.
drinking song. It's the
I think
Wild Rover.
If the Dropkick Murphys,
they covered it.
they must have. Yeah,
Okay.
they must have.
That's funny. That's where I know that from.
Oh,
You know what? That's the same kind of experience for me. Was Whiskey in a Jar by Metallica. I heard before I ever heard the original. So
Yeah. Well, there you go.
She was his cousin, right?
Yes.
So probably
Kissing
for the
cousins.
best.
Kissing cousins, I guess. But I think that was also not that uncommon back in the day. So she said no, nay, never. And he was devastated. And he was fairly devastated in a fairly unhealthy way for a while. He wrote his uncle, Johannes, super mad that she wouldn't agree to marry him. And
would you talk some sense into your daughter, who is my cousin, about my romantic advances?
Force her to marry me. And apparently, he went in to talk to his uncle. He was so mad about it and wanted to marry her. And he was like, no, you're never going to marry her. And then he wanted to speak to her, and nobody would let him speak to her. And so he held his hand over a candle, like the flame of a candle, and said, let me see her for as long as I can keep my hand in the flame. And his uncle blew out the flame.
I love that.
That's so great.
He is a little drama queen.
A little bit. I think it feels so dramatic and so over the top. And part of me is like, oh, he's such an artist. Because he's like, I see the world in this different way. And like all these kinds of things. But I think also it may have been that he was kind of unstable in some ways. That led to that.
Yeah.
So yes, after that, he blew out the candle.
Just blowing out the candle. I'll hold my hand over this candle.
Problem solved. So then
I'm just picturing his face as he like leans down and blows it out, and then just shakes his head.
yeah.
Stands back up.
Well, Van Gogh lived with him, so probably he's used to his like ridiculous, over the top stuff.
Yeah. Probably wasn't surprised.
Like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. So he made it very clear that Vincent and Key would never get married.
Did he say no, nay, never?
She already took care of it. But I'm sure it was singing.
It's a family phrase.
Yeah. That's where she
They
got
all
it.
say. That's how they say no to anything.
That's their family motto. Yeah. So after this, he had to leave, and he moved out to Hague to try and sell some of his paintings and meet with successful painters out there. And he had a second cousin, Anton Mauve, who agreed to take Vincent as a student. So it was sort of, I think they were hoping maybe a chance to kind of have him do something else to kind of get over this. But within a month, Vincent and Mauve fell out. Mauve got really mad at Vincent because it's rumored that the reason that he got angry with Vincent and they had this disagreement was because Vincent, who was not a wealthy man, and in truth, Theo is actually funding everything that Vincent is doing, really. So I say that Theo plays a very important part, but I feel like I haven't mentioned him much. But he is constantly writing letters back and forth with Van Gogh this entire time. And he's also constantly sending money to Van Gogh. So he's paying for his supplies. He's helping him pay for all of this, like moving and school fees and all this kind of stuff. Theo is paying for all of it.
How did he afford that? What did Theo do?
I want to say he was an art dealer, but I'm not 100% sure. But he nonetheless was paying for most of what Van Gogh was doing. And so Van Gogh, who was very poor because he only was receiving so many funds, would hire people like off the streets to be models. And at one point he moved in with a woman that was described as an alcoholic and former prostitute. And she had a young daughter and was pregnant with another child. And Van Gogh moved in with her and was living with her. And this is again, a very disputed thing on what really happened. Because some say that, and her name was, they called her Sen Hornick is her last name. Sen is her nickname. What's rumored is that it's Van Gogh's illegitimate child. And they say that she said it was his, and the child thought that that Van Gogh was his father for a long time. And after the baby was born, they named him
Vincent Van Gogh?
Willem Van Gogh.
Oh, so close.
So they dropped the Vincent, just the middle name. But it also is they say it's unlikely that it was actually his child. because based on the timing on when he actually met her and when the baby was born, it's unlikely that it's his. But it was kind of his like family unit that he had for a minute there. And he like drew her quite a few times, used her as a model, that kind of stuff. But Mauve found this abhorrent. It was not appropriate. And all of Van Gogh's family also found it absolutely scandalous.
What about Theo?
Theo, they all kind of disagreed with the idea of him living with her. What
was her name? Sen?
Sen, S-I-E-N.
Now I want to look up the portrait.
What is it called? I think it's called something like Sorrow or something like that. Either way, it was unsure whether it was his child or not, but everyone believed that it was because it was very strongly rumored. And so his family was very against it, especially his father. And they wrote a bunch of letters to him. And so initially, Van Gogh was super against leaving Sen and the little family, the daughter and the son. But eventually he did give in. And I was reading one of his letters, and at the bottom of it, he said, "What is more cultured, more sensitive, more manly, to forsake a woman or to take on a forsaken one?" Which I thought was like, I feel like that's his like really Christ-like kind of mindset that he has, but he still caved to pressure and ended up leaving her. And so he left her and the children, and he never actually saw her again. And it doesn't really end well for Sen either, because she ends up having to give up both of her children, and then she threw herself in a river and died in 1904. So it was a real bummer. And so that whole thing kind of happens. And then in September 1883, he moves to northern Netherlands. And this is to an area that's frequented by artists. But he also hated that. So then in that December, he moved. And he moved back in with his parents. I think this is the fourth time now? Third or fourth. And then in 1884... he sent some of his work to Theo in an attempt to repay some of the money that Theo had been sending Van Gogh. And so in the letter, Van Gogh is like, "I insist that this counts as me paying you back. Just sell my work and you'll get the money back. And then I'll continue to send you my work, and that's what you'll be paying me. Instead of just giving me money, I'll send you my finished works, and that'll be my allowance for you buying my works," essentially. Spoiler alert, only one painting of Van Gogh's ever was sold in his entire lifetime. But here's some more fun facts about it. His work is now listed as some of the most expensive artworks to date.
It's a cruel irony.
Yeah, so, I mean, he got there eventually. Anyways, so then he joined the Antwerp Academy, but refused to follow any of the Academy's dictates, which led to disputes, and he was kicked out after only 3 months. And then during that time, he went on to visit like local peasants, and he went and visited local peasants with Margot Begeman is her name, and it's the neighbor's daughter who was about 10 years Van Gogh's senior. And so at this time, he's just, because he left the school, he's just doing a lot of his own kind of painting and art and drawing and that kind of stuff, and then would go on what appears to be romantic walks with this lady Margot, I guess. And they fell in love. And congratulations, Vincent, she reciprocated.
Oh, nice.
So,
I was going to say, you said they fell in love. This is a new one.
Mm-hmm. And
fourth time's the charm.
Yeah, well, not really, because
too soon.
Yeah, because they go to tell their parents, and both sets of parents are like, "No, this is no good. Van Gogh is no good." Both sets of parents.
His parents.
Even his parents.
Our son, no good.
No good.
Yeah. We think you're a lovely girl, but you chose the wrong husband. It shows a lack of judgment on your part.
Yeah, they were not enthusiastic. And here's where I was like, either this was the perfect match or the absolute worst match, because Margot's response is she asks to meet up with Van Gogh.
Hold on. Her response was...
Candle related?
Yeah. Put this candle. As long as I hold my hand over it.
It would have been less dramatic than what she did.
Oh boy.
So
two candles.
She asks Van Gogh to meet with her like one last time, and when he arrives, she starts like convulsing on the floor, and so he immediately makes her throw up and then rushes her to the hospital. And it turns out that he saves her life because she had taken strychnine, I think it was, and tried to kill herself because she couldn't marry Van Gogh. And so just like way crazy over the top. And after that, they were like, you guys definitely can't get married for sure because this would be crazy. So he leaves again. And then shortly after that, in the same year, his father passes away. And the only letter that we have of Van Gogh really talking about that is he's like, well, father is dead. And then he moves on. He didn't really have a really close relationship with his father. So he's continuing to write to Theo. He's continuing to do works. And Theo is they're talking about how Van Gogh's work is actually a little too drab and brooding. Like it uses really dark colors. So if you look at a lot of Van Gogh's early works, they're of like peasants, and it's very like darker colors, like grays and darker yellows, and it looks sort of sad, and it is kind of brooding. Van Gogh uses yellows throughout his whole life. He loves yellows, but when the yellows are framed with just like grays and browns and that kind of stuff, it does feel very sad. And one of his like most famous pieces from this early time is the Potato Eaters. And it's one that not a lot of people have heard of, but it was like the one that got some of the most accolades while he was alive. And I just don't really care for it that much.
Do you think this is how their faces actually looked?
I doubt it. I think he was trying to capture how they felt and the like presence, and not necessarily the accuracy of it.
Or they were a family of goblins.
That's another option.
We're just putting all these burdens on Van Gogh. To be clear, I could not produce a piece of art 1/10 as good as Potato Eaters, although I could certainly think of a better title.
Yes, that's true. So yeah, he does, like with the Potato Eaters and stuff like that, he does finally get some works in a dealer's shop. But
was it a potato dealer?
It wasn't.
He's like, I got the perfect piece of art for you, man.
There's a potato dealer. So he finally gets some in the shops, but it doesn't go like he doesn't become as well received as he was really hoping. And then he has some more scandals because some of the models that he was paying to sit with him again were very poor people, and one of them got pregnant. And
from modeling.
Well, that's what people said. And so there was no evidence of any kind, including any reports from her or anything that Van Gogh had done anything. But it was still rumored nonetheless. So there was some backlash with that. And so bowing to pressure from the community, because like the priest in the area said that nobody could model for Van Gogh anymore, he moved to Antwerp and he rented a room above a paint dealer shop. And at this time he was eating really, really poorly. His health was declining and he was drinking a ton. So like his teeth became painful and like loose, and basically he was an alcoholic. And he kind of like started this kind of health decline. And then in 1886, Van Gogh took the higher level admissions test for the Academy of Fine Arts in Antwerp and actually graduated. He like made it in, graduated with a specialization in painting and drawing. And then he took some classes for drawing like from models and sculptures, and he ran into some trouble with those instructors because he disagreed with how they said things, and he disagreed with how he felt that the instructor was representing women in the drawings. And so one of the assignments was he was supposed to reproduce the Venus de Milo, and instead he drew a peasant woman that had no arms. And the instructor got so mad that he came over with a crayon and like marked so hard on Van Gogh's page that it ripped his paper. And Van Gogh flipped out and was like, clearly you don't know anything about women, and like left. And so he didn't finish any of those classes. And so the teachers told Van Gogh, like, you're going to have to repeat that year. And he was like, nah, I repeat nothing. And he just left. So he didn't finish that at all either. And then his drinking and stuff got so bad that he actually admitted himself to the hospital. And then in 1886, like later in that same year, he just showed up in Paris at Theo's house without telling him. Like he was writing Theo this whole time, but he just like showed up. And so for a brief period,
the last letter is, I'm outside.
Actually, you are not wrong. He sent a letter that got there at the same time, and he was like, meet me at the Louvre. And Theo was like, what? And he's like, I'm already here. Can you let me in? Like, he really did do that. So you were correct.
Good one. You know more about Van Gogh than you let on.
So many facts in my brain.
And so there's no letters during this time from between Theo and Van Gogh because they're living together, so they're not 100% sure what was going on, but it seemed like it was a really good time for him where he, it's in Paris. There's just so much art going on in Paris. And he met some really famous artists. Like, he met Emily Bernard and Louise Anquetin. Here's who we met that I'm like, oh, I'm so jealous, is Henri de Toulouse-Lautrec. Do you guys know that name?
What? Henri?
Oh, you're making fun of me.
Is that the guy who's got the can girls
Yes!
with the fishes' heads?
What?
It's a SpongeBob.
I was so excited for a minute. For just a second.
There's a SpongeBob episode where SpongeBob and Patrick are taking care of Squidward because they think he's a ghost, and he's having them move his lawn chair around, and like, this place is too hot and this place is too shady, and they go to in front of a scene with some can girls, but they're fish because they're underwater, and he says, this is Toulouse-Lautrec.
Toulouse-Lautrec.
Yeah, it's Toulouse-Lautrec. And then they move on to another scene. And so, there you go. It's a highfalutin art joke in a SpongeBob episode.
Well, I was so excited for a second because you're like, the can women, and then you said with fish heads. In a moment. But yes, Toulouse-Lautrec. I'm a fan of Toulouse-Lautrec. Anyways, and Toulouse-Lautrec actually drew a portrait of Van Gogh drinking a glass of absinthe. Like, they were in these like scenes around each other enough that he actually like drew a portrait of Van Gogh. I looked it up and it's beautiful.
Is it really?
Yeah, it is.
Is it better than Van Gogh's portrait of him drawing a portrait of him drinking absinthe?
No, but Van Gogh does do quite a few self-portraits, which I can't say they're better. They're just different. So in 1888, he moves to the south of France, to Arles, and the other person that he met was Paul Gauguin, or Gauguin. It's however you say it. Gauguin, no. That's not it at all.
Gauguin!
He's not.
It's German. Gauguin!
So Paul Gauguin and... Gauguin, no. This is... So he meets him and they get along great, and then Van Gogh moves to Arles and goes to this house that's the yellow house, and he convinces Paul Gauguin to come and move in with him so that he can sort of start this art group here. That's his ideal that he wants to do. And he convinces Gauguin to move in with him because he says that his brother Theo will pay him, basically. So Theo is now also paying for Van Gogh and a stipend for Gauguin. And they're living in the yellow house together, and the yellow house no longer exists, but it is two of Van Gogh's paintings are that yellow house and then the bedroom within the yellow house, that are kind of like famous paintings. But this is where we run into the ear problem.
Oh man, all this build up.
All this build up.
All the SpongeBob we sat through to get to the ear.
To get to the ear.
I can't wait. Tell us about the ear, Kelly.
I will.
Tell us about that ear. I want to hear about the ear.
The ear.
Ear.
Okay, so Gauguin and Van Gogh, they had kind of a tumultuous friendship. And so it was like pretty great. They learned from each other quite a bit, especially Van Gogh. He was very influenced by a lot of artists. You can see a lot of like Peter Paul Rubens' influence and a lot of like Japanese ukiyo-e art. I'm not doing
Why
anything.
are you not getting to the ear? We came this whole thing and you're talking about Japan.
I was so excited to talk about these influences because Van Gogh was learning so much. It was a really exciting time for Van Gogh. This factors into it, I promise.
Okay, if you say so.
Yeah,
Listen, I'm trusting you, but not for much longer.
Yeah.
I'm just going to make up an ear story
We
if
already
you don't
took
get to
too
it.
long. It is very exciting because his art is growing and improving at such huge measures. Like if you look at what he's painting at this time versus those paintings that he was doing before, it's exponentially better. And it's using bright, vibrant colors. We're getting to where he's starting to paint similarly to what we know him for, like Starry Night and the Night Cafe and stuff like that. And so what is devastating is Van Gogh and Gauguin get in an argument. And the argument gets so heated that Van Gogh takes a razor and first threatens Gauguin with it and then turns the razor on himself, and grabbing his left ear, he takes the razor and he cuts either up or down, I don't know, and cuts his ear off. And then he goes out to the local brothel and he hands his ear to a woman there, and then he takes off and they find him later unconscious. And I'm leaving it a little bit vague because there are multiple theories on what happened, and I'm going to break them down for you real quick because he just cut off his ear in a moment of passion.
This was worth it all. This was so great. It is actually interesting.
So here's the first part of the three. It's 3 parts, right? Theories on the argument, theories on how much of his ear, because it's debated on how much of his ear was cut off, and theories on who received the ear. So first on the argument. The first and kind of most outrageous and unfounded, but I had to list because it's one of them, is that Van Gogh was actually in love with Gauguin and didn't know how to process his feelings because I was so against what he was taught, that when Gauguin said that he was going to leave, Van Gogh didn't know what to do with it, so he cut off his ear. And that's one theory as to why he was so crazy about it. The second is that they had an argument that had been kind of brewing for a while, and because Van Gogh was an alcoholic and he had poor diet and was not very good at handling his emotions and was kind of at a diminished mental capacity, he just sort of flipped out. And because he had a razor, most artists have a razor, that he threatened Gauguin with it and then didn't want to actually hurt Gauguin, but did something, and so he cut his ear off. And then kind of adjacent is that Van Gogh was upset just because Gauguin was leaving, and especially because this is when Van Gogh was really hitting his stride, and so he just sort of flipped out. It's very similar to the first one. The last one, which again is sort of crazy, but it's one that's listed, is that it wasn't an argument with Gauguin, but it was because he was in love with this woman and he wanted to confess it to her, and so he didn't know what to do, so he gave her the gift of his ear. And that's kind of the 4 ideas that I could find behind why Van Gogh cut his ear off.
Which one do you most believe in?
I most believe that he had an argument with Gauguin because Gauguin was leaving. Van Gogh was not an easy person to live with, by every account. And so Gauguin was leaving, and I think it just was like another blow for Van Gogh, and he already has a history of overreacting to disappointments, as we've seen. Mm-hmm. And so I think he had the razor and just was like, I'm going to do something crazy. You know, I think he just sort of snapped. I think it's the most likely.
Because there was no one there to talk him down.
Yeah.
Like no one to blow out the metaphorical candle.
Yeah.
Right.
Not really. Because really it was just him and Gauguin.
I mean, it doesn't seem like it would be likely that it was because of feelings for the lady, because we've seen time and time again he has no problem telling people that he loves them.
Yeah. He doesn't need a gift.
Yeah.
Yeah. But he doesn't actually...
I could see him doing that as like a gesture, you know, like, if I can never hear your voice again, then I shall never hear. And then he cuts off his ear. And then he's like, why can't I still hear?
Ears don't work like that.
That's true. But the other problem with that is he, like, at this time, he never had a girl that he was confessing to, or that he spoke of that he was actually, like, in love with. And he usually spoke to Theo or somebody about it.
So did he start writing Theo again when he was in the Yellow House?
Yeah. Yeah, anytime that he's not with Theo, he's writing him.
Okay.
I think it makes sense that he probably was... It was one of those, like, stay or I'll cut my ear off sort of thing, you know? Like, he gave an ultimatum, and then Gauguin was like, I'm Gauguin. and he had to follow through with his ultimatum.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely a man of his word.
Yeah.
It's very true.
If nothing else.
There's nothing else. So to the second part of this, like, how much of his ear did he actually cut off? And there's just two options, right? Part of it or the whole thing.
Yeah, those are pretty
Those
much
are
the two options.
Or none of it. Third option.
Third option.
It's all made up.
But we know that's not it. And so the first one where he only cut part of it is the most prominent thing for the longest time. And part of that is because Gauguin, he writes in a letter that that part of Van Gogh's ear is missing. That's what he says. But in that same letter, he also explains that he didn't actually see the ear because it was wrapped up and under a hat. So he says part of his ear, but in the letter, he doesn't actually confirm that he saw the injury. So it's up for debate if he's not a good eyewitness, essentially.
That's interesting. So Van Gogh cut the ear off, but didn't do it in the presence of Gauguin?
I don't know if he did or didn't do it in the presence of Gauguin, but he did take off, right? Mm-hmm. So if I saw somebody holding onto their ear and like cut and then take off, I don't know if I could accurately say how much of their ear they cut either. Okay. Because it's definitely also going to bleed.
You might even look away.
Yeah. I mean, that could be a pretty normal response, I would think. And so the other theory, which is kind of more factish now, is in the 1990s, they found some documents that were the doctor's notes, and within these doctor's notes was a diagram of Van Gogh's injuries, which in the diagram, it shows that the whole ear was cut off. So he like put the razor at right up to the ear and like right up next to where it connects to the head and cut all the way up. So the whole ear is missing. But
that seems pretty definitive.
Yeah. And that's the only thing that could possibly make this not accurate is if it's not authentic documentation. And so the papers appear to be of the right age. They appear to be in the right, like it all appears to be. Brandon's over here like trying to figure out what seems like the most.
Oh, well, I was just thinking if I was trying to cut my ear off, and I think that if I went from down and cut up, that I would be likely to not catch all of my ear, perhaps, trying not to hit my hand. I think I would probably cut down if I wanted to make sure I got all of it.
Which maybe. I don't know. It
I mean,
didn't
that's
say.
just me.
But the diagram does show pretty accurately. So people are saying because these seem to be authentic papers, that seems to be the case. That he cut off
If it's
his
in
whole
a
ear.
book, it's true. We've learned that time and time again.
Over and over again, nobody lies. So here's the last part of the theory, which I know is your favorite part, is the girl that received the ear. So the first and most commonly, repeated theory is that he took the ear and he gave it to a prostitute named Rachel that worked at the brothel as a gift to show love or as some kind of gift, memento.
Sure.
And
as one does.
As one does. And the other theory is the more likely one because they've done research and they couldn't actually find any prostitute that worked at a brothel in that area at that time named Rachel.
I feel like they wouldn't have super
could be
comprehensive
yeah.
paperwork.
Could be. But they found no evidence that this person existed. This prostitute existed. But there was a young girl that worked as the hostess of the brothel. And so she would be at the front door. And so she wasn't a prostitute, but she just worked there. And the second kind of note to this is that she also worked at a cafe that Vincent frequented. So there's some indication that they may have had at least like a knowledge of each other. And so the idea or the theory, the thoughts behind it is he left to this brothel and I believe it was in the area. And so he gave it to her because he's like, somebody needs to take care of this. I don't think he was like really thinking very well. And she's the hostess. She's out in the front and she's somebody familiar to him. Mm-hmm. And there's no like profession of love or anything like that. He gives her the ear and takes off. She passes out. And so Van Gogh takes off and passes out somewhere. She passes out. And it's quite a bit later when police find her and the ear and bring it to the hospital, at which point the doctors explain that the ear has been detached too long and they can't reattach it. So Van Gogh does sadly have to go the rest of his life without his left ear. So, and that is the ear. And now you understand why the episode is called An Earful or a Full Ear. Get it?
I get it now.
There you go. But that is where we're going to have to stop. And part 2, we're going to go over... It's a much shorter period of time, but it's a lot of... you guys are going to have to put on your detective hats to see if you can crack the crime. See if it was actually a murder or a suicide.
Oh, wow.
We'll play Clue.
Yeah.
And
We'll have little notes.
at the end, we will decide what it was.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that will be written in Wikipedia.
Yeah. That'll be
According to this podcast.
Everybody tune in. We're going to solve it.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Thank you, guys. I know that was a long one. I tried to cut it short, but, like, there's just so much. He just, like, had so much happen in his life. And it was so interesting and so many crazy things.
Yeah. I think you could say that Vincent Van Gogh was so extra.
He was a little extra, yeah. So, yeah. But yeah, I'm excited to finish it off next time, and thanks so much for listening in with both ears.
Huh.
Okay, bye.
Chowder. I don't know.
What?
So, what? It's like chow, but I said chowder instead. I mean,
I
look.
got that. Are you still recording?
Yeah.
Excellent.
I was just saying goodbye, right?
Try it again.
Try what? Chowder?
Yeah.
You want me to say the same joke that didn't work the last time? Chowder.
I'm Googling Vincent Van Gogh descendants named Vincent Van Gogh. I don't know why this is the stupidest query.
I'm so sorry. And then I almost swore too because I swore. Oh man, I'm not a good person. I'm the worst of us. They'll never call me the Christ of the coal mines. Also,
you know
I'm
what?
a woman.
Never say never. If you have a dream, stick to your dream. Go to the coal mine, Kelly, and bring them loaves and fish. Commenters, tell Kelly how funny she is.